This past week was the G7 summit in Alberta, hosted by our prime globalist, Mark's Carney. And even though the summit was lacking its normal woke feel, it was chock full of globalism, as to be expected. Canada is going to spend billions of dollars to help everyone other than our own people, of course. And if we're willing to pay, Canada can join Donald Trump's Golden Dome protection system, and the offer to become the 51st state is still very much on the table. I, for one, think the G7 summit is a waste of time and money. We know that these global elites want what they want, and their self-congratulatory party is completely unnecessary. That is, for about 99.999% of Canadians, the ones who live in the real world. But we're here to cover it because we care. It's June 20th. I'm Andrew DiBartolo. That's Matt Halleck. This is Liberty Dispatch.
Hey there, friends, and welcome back to Liberty Dispatch, where we bring you conservative news and analysis from an unapologetically conservative, Canadian, and most importantly, Christian perspective. So if you like what we do, you know what to do. Get over to our various channels, subscribe, hit the notification bell. Please help us grow. And if you want to get all full access to all our content, all our interviews, we got some really great ones scheduled coming up. If you want full access to all the Bitcoin sessions that we just dropped this week, you have to go over to our Substack, ldcanada.substack.com. So get over there, get yourself some wonderful content, be a part of the conversation, and we would really appreciate it. It helps us grow the channel, helps us get news and analysis where you're not going to get it anywhere else, out to more and more people. So we appreciate you tuning in. Again, ldcanada.substack.com for all things LD. AD, how you doing, man? It's good to see you again.
I'm doing well.
Good.
School year is done. I'm into the summer, and
Right
I'm
on.
enjoying my first summer as a teacher. It's great.
Yeah, there you go, man.
Yeah.
Living the dream.
Living the dream, working part-time at Sport Check, living the dream.
Yeah, there you go, man. There you go.
So
it's
just want to remind
like
everyone,
being a world leader, Andrew. You're almost there.
I'm almost there. Just a few more globalisms and a couple shady murders, and I too can be a world leader. Just want to remind everyone that our 3 Bitcoin webinars are available. You can watch them on our Substack, ldcanada.substack.com. So the webinars, the beginning of each session, the first 20 to 30 minutes is free for everyone. But if you want to watch the Q&A portion, which is another 30 minutes on top of it, where we answered questions from the live audience, then you have to become a paid subscriber. And there's some really, really good stuff there. We just wanted to incentivize you to support our work and give you a few little extra bits. So again, that's ldcanada.substack.com. Markets have been pretty turbulent this year, but uncertainty doesn't have to mean instability. Our friends at Rocklink Investment Partners will help you navigate volatility with a disciplined, research-driven approach. They don't chase trends, they don't speculate, they invest in quality businesses poised to perform strongly regardless of the ever-changing politics in our country and in our world. So don't let market swings dictate your future. Give them a call at 905-631-5462 or email them at info@rocklink.com and see how they can help you secure your financial future. As I mentioned, this past week was the G7 summit, the Group of 7 summit in Alberta. And the atmosphere was a little bit different than G7 summits as of late. It might be that Orange Man Bad was in attendance, so they had to be on better behavior than normal. So before we get into the substance of it, because they talked about a lot, and really what we're going to be talking about is everything as it pertains to Canada. Like, I don't care what some of these other countries are doing as much as I care about how it affects you and I as Canadian citizens, what our leaders are doing, and how they're interacting. So before we get into the substance of it, by way of introduction, we have 2 stories we want to look at. The first one is from the Epoch Times. Okay? Quote, When U.S. President Donald Trump joins the world leaders at the G7 summit in Canada on June 15th, so this was written obviously before it, he will find a different agenda awaiting him. In a significant departure from recent years, the host nation is sidelining climate action and gender equality, issues that were once central to the summit's mission. This year's gathering will prioritize issues such as energy security, artificial intelligence, or AI, critical mineral supply chains, and global economic stability, reflecting a shift in priorities driven by Trump's return to the White House and a renewed focus on the G7's original mission, according to experts. Trade tensions heightened by recent U.S. tariffs, along with geopolitical crises such as the Israel-Iran escalation, the Russia-Ukraine war, and the conflict in the Gaza Strip, will also be key topics in the leaders' discussions. Many believe that Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney, as host of this year's summit, is adopting a pragmatic approach to ensure that the meeting addresses the most pressing challenges that resonate with all member countries, close quote. It is amazing to see the impact and the influence of Donald Trump showing up at
He
the
casts
G7.
a big shadow, Andrew, and it's not just because he's a
big-
large man.
A big orange shadow,
Yeah.
a big orange aura all around him. But I think the article from the Epoch Times is right. I think if Joe Biden, whoever was controlling the Joe Biden marionette, if they won the election, or if Joker cackle Kamala Harris ended up winning, whoever they decided, I think you would have seen all the same super duper woke stuff. But the fact that Trump was there, I think they downplay it. So it creates a little bit of a different atmosphere, which is interesting and I think made for a different G7 summit than we've seen in recent years.
Yeah, the interesting though, like if you actually go to the G7 Summit website, a lot of the same environmental and sustainability goals, a lot of the Gender Equality Advisory Council, all of that stuff is still a part of the ethos. It's a part of what the G7's all about, and it is featured prominently on the website. But it is interesting that in front of the cameras with the world leaders there, they took a different attack and different approach to things. So, I mean, if I'll link it in the description below, you can all see it. There's still a good focus on the website on the UN Sustainable Development Goals. We talked about those goals being essentially totalitarian and Marxist in their effort. Canada's greening government strategy and federal sustainable development strategy as well. So all of these things that have been a scourge to the Canadian economy and promoting net zero, all these things, they're still a part of what the G7 is about. They're just doing it in a less ostentatious, before your face type of matter. But I think it is interesting to point out, at least they've had to take a different tact. And I think there's even a win just in the fact that they have to put this underground. But we should just be aware of that and be cautious. So there was also another interesting observation, Andrew, and this was made by the National Post. So as U.S. President Donald Trump stepped onto a podium for a photo with Prime Minister Mark Carney and his wife Diana Fox Carney, he wore two lapel pins on the left side of his suit. The first, a small pin of the American flag, and underneath paired Canadian and American flags. The pins were also in place during his earlier bilateral meeting with Carney earlier in the day when Trump and Carney met and took questions from reporters. Trump affected an upbeat mood, praising the relationship that he had built with Carney. But given the off-strained relationship between Canada and the United States, and in particular between Trump and the former Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, the lapel pin is perhaps indicative of a warming relationship between the two countries. Or perhaps it's indicative of Trump's belief that Canada and the U.S. would be better together literally as one country. So there you have it. Donald Trump showed up. He took up a lot of the oxygen in the room with the initial meetings on day one. And it was certainly good to see that his presence, like you said, stopped a lot of the wokeness that tends to go on at the G7. Obviously, for those who are unaware, G7 group of seven includes France, United States, United Kingdom, Germany, Japan, Italy, and Canada as seven. Interestingly enough, though, I'm glad you kind of set it off the start, Andrew. It does tend to be kind of another opportunity for a bunch of globalists to get together and pat each other on the back and speak in banal corporate language about how they're going to transform the world and, save us from all the problems that they've created. That tends to be what it is because, interestingly enough, everybody shows up eventually, right? For the first day, I think there was 9 people on the podium for the family photo because von der Ursula or whatever her name is from the EU, she had to be there, obviously. And then Carney inexplicitly told Modi and a bunch of other guys they could come. There's the South African president, I believe, is there too, even despite all the tensions going on with the, basically the stealing and the killing of Afrikaners farmland. It's just gross, but it's much the globalist thing. It's so similar, right? It's it invites all these countries together to forward this set of initiatives, this set of goals, multilateralism that ultimately I think are very dangerous. And often when these types of ghouls get together, it's for the worse and not for the better. But it's interesting. It'll be interesting to see what comes out of it. Obviously, nothing official came out of it for Canada with the US right off the bat. But I know we'll get into some more of kind of what went on. But Donald Trump obviously had to take off a little bit early. So he really stole the show. It's kind of funny because I think a lot of people were hoping that he would not get the invite to the party. But he definitely got the invite to the party. Then when he was there, he stole a lot of the oxygen in the room. And then when he was gone, it was as though really the G7 lost a lot of its importance, which is not surprising given the exceedingly important place that the United States plays, especially economically, when we consider all the other 6 countries in this group of 7 all really struggling when it comes to economics. So it'll be interesting.
And it's also worth noting that Trump is not letting up on this 51st state thing. He is not. We'll see this later. There's a comment he made that we're going to cover in a little bit. He's just not. He's still. Well, if they want, they can. It would be great. A big, beautiful land. Like he's still. He's still pressing it.
No, it's kind of funny. It's kind of funny, and then putting it in a beautiful, mountain range in Alberta is probably another. It's probably only going to make him want Canada more. But it is really interesting to see. Hey, a side note: we're Canadians. Did you watch any of the Stanley Cup, Andrew?
No.
Are you interested in hockey at all?
Not particularly. I know that it was the Oilers and the Panthers.
Yeah,
and I saw some people say that the Oilers basically flaked out and decided they took a vacation, and it's the second year in a row they've lost the finals. And Mark Carney brought the curse this year.
Well,
that's about what I was able to clean.
I'm going to throw on the overlay a picture of Carney wearing a horribly blasphemous McJesus
the other
shirt.
the Connor,
Yeah. But anyways, it's hard not to, because I'm just thinking of the Trump Carney relationship, and it's hard not to think that like you have Edmonton, that's Carney's team apparently, right? Like the Oilers are his team. Versus Florida. Obviously Trump lives in Florida now. Pardon?
Even though Carney hates granting Canada full access to its oil and natural gas.
I understand, but I mean, he likes nothing more than just empty symbols, right?
I think it's just ironic. It's ironic. It's almost the only thing that would be more ironic is if his team was like, I don't know, if his team was Lethbridge Freedom, like that would be the only more ironic title.
Yeah,
for the team that Carney supports.
Well, anyways, the point though, it's hard not to see. I'm just thinking like, okay, so you have Carney's, favorite team versus Trump's home state team. They're kind of, the ethos of Canada and liberty, and the ethos
it's Trump's home state. I thought Trump was a New York guy. He lives in Florida.
But he lives in Florida now. He lives in, and he's been a Florida guy for a long time now because he basically ran out of New York. But so you kind of have these two things, and it's just like 2 years in a row. The Florida team, the pro freedom, no state taxes, which gives them an upper hand on signing free agents and everything. They absolutely steamroll the Oilers, and they do it in pretty convincing fashion. So I just thought it was interesting. I thought it definitely it was there was some sort of symbology in my mind that it's like Carney versus Trump, and Trump gets the upper hand again. And I think the interactions that they have all the time, it's so awkward. It definitely, like, I don't know if it's ever felt more big brother, little brother, right? Because Carney was saying elbows up. That was the whole mindset that he won the election. But since they've actually won the election and he's actually had to go and deal with Donald Trump, he's just been brown nosing. And like, that's the entire time. It seems like he's the awkward kid brother who's really trying to get in with the more important, popular older brother. And that's always the way it comes across. And in this, like, I can't help but the whole G7 thing. This is like what Mark Carney lives for. He like, this is it. Like, this is why I wanted to be prime minister. I want to lead Canada into the G7. And basically Donald Trump's like, nah, I got better things to do. That was kind of, and is that not indicative of the relationship that Canada has with the United States of America? It's like, this is our moment, man. This is what we're living for. We're going to put our best foot forward. And then the older brother's like, nah, I'm going to go hang out with my friends. I actually have to stop World War III or start it or whatever is going to happen. But he has more important things to do than sit around and wax elegant with a bunch of idiots. That's kind of what it came off.
Yep. Well, now it's time to get Matt all totally jacked up with the music for this next ad read. Inflation through the roof.
Grocery prices up 11% year over year.
Censorship of dissident voices. Freezing of bank accounts.
Justin Trudeau invoking emergency powers against the truckers. Banks can now freeze their personal accounts, the accounts of anyone linked to the Freedom Convoy.
Digital surveillance and communism spreading.
What do we want?
Basic income!
With the basic income, and I felt a sense of security because I didn't have to worry about not going hungry, and I didn't have to worry about being kicked out of my apartment.
The government is on the verge of bankruptcy, and they're coming for your money.
Is Canada's federal debt increasing in real time, now surpassing $1.2 trillion. This debt is draining taxpayer dollars, with interest alone costing $54 billion this year.
It's time to break free and start saving in money they can't take from you. Since 2013, the folks at Bull Bitcoin have one mission: destroy centuries conventional banking. Bull Bitcoin is the most trusted Bitcoin company in Canada. They empower you to buy, sell, and pay bills with Bitcoin. They are 100% non-custodial, which means that you always maintain full control over your Bitcoin, allowing you to reclaim your financial sovereignty and secure your wealth for the future. Their customer support will assist you throughout the whole process, helping you get your hands on the hardest money ever created. Escape their financial gulag, click on the link below, and start buying Bitcoin today and get a $20 bonus as a listener of Liberty Dispatch. Yeah. So let's move on to what Canada had to contribute to the G7. And as you would imagine, more globalism. There's more globalism. That's what we're doing. So
who's surprised
this
at
first
this
story,
point?
no one's surprised. Here's the first story from Juno News. Quote, Prime Minister Mark Carney pledged $4.3 billion in support for Ukraine and announced new sanctions on Russia after meeting with Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky in Alberta at the G7 summit. The Prime Minister's office outlined $2 billion for weapons such as drones and armored vehicles, and another $2.3 billion to fund the rebuilding of Ukrainian infrastructure destroyed by Russia. The $2 billion allocated for Ukrainian weaponry will count toward Canada's 2% defense spending target to meet NATO requirements. Carney also welcomed NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte to join in discussions with G7 leaders regarding Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Additionally, Ottawa will add new sanctions on Russian assets, including energy, revenues, and 201 additional vessels in its shadow fleet. The newly added vessels have been used to ship oil, liquefied natural gas, and weaponry while evading existing sanctions. Canada will also restrict the import of Russian coal, metals, and other goods. Close quote. You want a little more globalism? Sure, of course you do. This next story is from the Western Standard. Quote, Carney's closing remarks emphasized the fragile nature of consensus in today's geopolitically fragmented world. Reflecting on the summit's challenging dynamics, he insisted that the summit's outcomes marked a significant moment for pragmatic collaboration. He said, there were differences of opinion, but what matters is that we found common ground, particularly on economic resilience, digital transition, and energy security. Carney also focused on the shifting security landscape. With an eye toward the NATO summit and the Canada-EU talks next week, he stressed that the nature of global defense cooperation is changing, particularly as new threats emerge, including missile defense systems and ongoing tensions in the Middle East. He said, Canada's geography is no longer the natural shield it once was, acknowledging the growing need for advanced defense systems to counter threats from ballistic missiles. Carney also confirmed ongoing discussions with the U.S. over potential collaboration in missile defense, which we'll get into shortly, underscoring that Canada's defense strategy will align with its security priorities, ensuring that the country isn't left vulnerable in an increasingly dangerous world. So none of this actually really helps Canadians. It's not actually going to benefit us, and it's going to be a bunch of money and more bureaucracies, and it won't actually do anything good for the country. But that's what the G7 summit's all about. That's
a lot of empty talk, and I think that's been what Carney's been about thus far. He's about setting some sort of tone and saying a lot of words that never actually come to fruition. So we'll see. It's a lot of talk, a lot of flowery language, he's trying to put himself together as this pragmatic guy, not a empty-headed ideologue as he has been his entire life. So everybody knows, I was curious because of the Bull Bitcoin ad. What is the current debt in Canada, especially given the fact that our economy sucks and we're still promising tons and tons of money to the Ukraine? It's currently $1 trillion, $1,264 billion, 12 million and counting. And it's going up every day. It grows by $109 million.
That's not so bad.
Yeah, so that's a lot of money, though, because I think that's like $4 million an hour. So That's a lot of money that we can't be affording to give to other places in the world to fight a forever war. But anyways, here we are. At least Carney apparently agreed, Andrew, in the one day that they were together with Trump to end the tariff war once and for all. And Andrew, that's because it's really damaging Canada's economy and it's not doing anything to the United States of America. The whole elbows up thing, man, that went so sideways so quick. And it's just like people are just like moving on. Oh, well, whatever. Anyways, this is from the Rebel News. Prime Minister Mark Carney and U.S. President Donald Trump are expected to sign a new trade deal within 30 days, signaling a major shift in relations and a potential end to the trade war. Prime Minister Carney and President Trump discussed immediate trade pressures and priorities for each country's workers and businesses and shared updates on key issues raised in negotiations on a new economic and security relationship between Canada and the U.S., according to a June 16 readout from the Prime Minister's office. The PMO clarified that a new deal would be signed within that timeline. The major development follows an hour-long meeting between both leaders on Monday morning, where Trump claimed a deal with Canada was, quote, achievable within days or weeks if both sides agreed. So potentially a positive coming out there, but it's amazing, Andrew, because how many days are we into as prime minister? I mean, we're not very far into it. But he put forward that the relationship between Canada and the United States was forever changed, that there was no going back. It'll never be the same, that there's no, everything is horrible. This is a crisis beyond all belief. And then the second he gets into office, and the numbers start coming in on just how bad things are going to be for Canada, in all of this, he starts brown nosing and kissing up to Donald Trump. The elbows go down. It becomes the awkward younger brother who's just trying to spend some time with his older brother. But that's how that's how this whole thing seems to me, man. Which it is a parable about Canada's identity when it comes to the United States of America. It's totally a parable about it. Working out in real time. So a lot of money, I guess potentially positive. I think it would be positive for us to be a part of the Golden Dome. I don't really see any downsides to that. I kind of don't see how that's not a little bit of the predicate for Canada, the United States being,
don't give away too much Golden Dome. We're going to talk about that next. Don't give away. Don't tip your hand too much.
No, I won't. But anyways,
kudos to Trump. I mean, that sounds way better than the Iron Dome in Israel. I mean, like this Iron Dome,
gold,
iron, strong.
That's old.
Platinum, golden, jewel encrusted.
Well, but he had to do
dome.
Gold because that's the Trump color, right? Gold is Trump. So
beautiful.
The guy knows how to market, man.
That beautiful golden dome.
Yeah,
will protect us.
It's so crazy, man. He's so good at it. But man, do you ever feel bad for those people? Like, I'm not a Trump sycophant. I can be objective and like some things, not like some. But do you ever feel sorry for people with Trump derangement syndrome? Because it's like they can't appreciate actually some of the things that
they're the same kind of people who were permanently broken during COVID. Their brains are different.
It's like that's so sorry, man. Like you can't at least laugh at them. You can't even say, of course, like that's good marketing. Like, I think you got to show a little appreciation where appreciation's due anyways.
Speaking of appreciation where appreciation's due, we have a new partnership that we want to unveil and talk about at our show. So obviously, we've been connected with Bull Bitcoin for years now. But I had the privilege of meeting the guys over at Bitcoin Mentor when I was at a conference with the Bull Bitcoin guys. And so Bitcoin Mentor, new friends of the show, the newest partnership we want to talk about. And Bitcoin Mentor, essentially, if Bull Bitcoin is where you buy Bitcoin, then Bitcoin Mentor is how you buy it and the process of doing it the right way. Okay, so question I have for you is, are you still reliant on corrupt banks for your livelihood and for your functioning? In today's world, where financial freedom is increasingly under threat, true liberty requires taking custody of your assets. That's why it's my pleasure to tell you about Alberta-based Bitcoin Mentor. Founded by the top global Bitcoin educator, Ben Perrin, they've helped thousands of clients, including political dissidents, learn to confidently secure Bitcoin for themselves and their families. So Bitcoin isn't just another investment. It is a powerful shield against totalitarianism. If you've been putting off learning more because you don't have time to go through all the tutorials and the guides and the YouTube videos, well, that's what Bitcoin Mentor exists to do, and they're here to assist. So you can book a free strategy session by clicking on the link, heading over to our affiliate link, which is bitcoinmentor.io/AFF/liberty. We're going to have it in the description as well. bitcoinmentor.io/AFF/liberty. Their team isn't just knowledgeable about Bitcoin, they're committed to integrity, privacy, and self-sovereignty. So you might be wondering, what's the point of Bitcoin Mentor? Let's assume you're thinking, I want to buy Bitcoin, I want to get in the space, but I have so many questions. What kind of a wallet do I buy? How do I store it? What about cold storage? What about cold cards? Questions about what's the difference between Lightning and just there's so much going on, and I don't have the time to delve into all of the videos on YouTube to figure out. Well, that's what Bitcoin Mentor exists to do. They exist to help you purchase Bitcoin, secure it, safely store it, sell it, and actually engage with Bitcoin in a way that it saves you all the time of doing that research and trying to figure it out. They'll answer all your questions. They actually joined us during the seminars we did, the Bitcoin seminars with Pablo from Bull Bitcoin. So these are freedom-minded guys in Alberta here to help you figure out all things Bitcoin. So,
man, Andrew, this is why you want to be a full access member over at our LD Substack, because you can you can dip your toes into this. You can do Bitcoin 101, get some of the questions that other people are asking, and start your journey down that road. But if you want to start a relationship with people who can mentor you in the best way to hold and to grow your share of Bitcoin within your portfolio, you can't do better than going over to Bitcoin Mentor. So we're helping people build wealth without corrupt bank systems by using crypto. And I'm so thankful for the partnerships that we have with Bull Bitcoin and also with Bitcoin Mentor. And it's great. Hey, if you want to be elbows up pro Canada, there you go. These are Canadian companies. So that we're helping you have financial freedom while getting your Canadiana on. So definitely excited for this new partnership. Well, Andrew, a few more issues were on the table at the G7. And this first one needs a little bit of setup. So this is from Zero Hedge. The Department of Defense has selected a design for President Donald Trump's Golden Dome Missile Defense Initiative. Trump announced on May 20. I'm pleased to announce that we have officially selected an architecture for the state-of-the-art system that will deploy next-generation technologies across the land, sea, and even space, including space-based sensors and interceptors. Trump told reporters at the White House, quote, "It should be fully operational before the end of my term," which would be extraordinary. "So we'll have it done in about 3 years," the president said. Trump said the plan the Department of Defense has selected should cost about $175 billion to complete, which, if you consider how much our debt's going up by the day, that's actually pretty good. The plan will meld new technologies with existing U.S. missile defense systems. Canada may also partner with the United States to help develop the improved missile defense shield, the president said. Quote, "Canada wants to be a part of it, which would be a fairly small expansion." I mean, pretty large landmass, but anyways, but we'll work with them on the pricing. So that's really interesting.
This is from a month ago.
Yeah.
Right. So this was the article a month ago when it was announced, and that's the setup for what was discussed during the G7.
Exactly. 100%. So this comes to us from the Rebel News. United States President Donald Trump announced that Canada could fall under the protection of the U.S.'s Advanced Golden Dome missile defense system, a cutting-edge shield designed to counter global threats. However, the offer comes with a hefty price. Canada must foot a $71 billion bill to secure its place under the dome, which really, Andrew, that's just, it's a couple days. I don't know. Is it even a couple days? Yeah. I mean, at this point, I mean, that's better than sending money to Ukraine. Let's be honest. So,
right.
Yeah. So anyway, $71 billion, that is a lot of money. But it might be worth it. And I'm sure the Americans want us to do it because they probably, like, those Canadians are really bad at, dealing with their own stuff up there. So if we don't, there's a huge weakness on our northern border. Anyways, at the G7 summit in Kananaskis, Alberta, President Trump remarks could signal intensifying trade war tensions between the U.S. and Canada, further straining the old relationship between the once close allies who share the world's longest border and a historically robust trade partnership. When pressed on whether Canada could become the 51st U.S. state, Trump replied, "It's up to them." The continued talk to see Canada become a state of the U.S. has fueled discussions about sovereignty, economic pressures, and the future of U.S.-Canada relations. While the $71 billion price tag is potentially straining Canada's already fragile economy, supporters see it as a necessary investment in North American security. And that would be a big win for Donald Trump for getting... I mean, okay, so hold on. I want to go back to what is the initial... cost of the actual thing that was being
$178 billion.
Wow. So we're going to
$175 billion.
So 175. So are we paying for a third of it then?
Only to make it cover us. So what we're contributing, I think, the Golden Dome is going to cost that much to protect the United States.
The U.S.
And if Canada wants to join in, obviously the sensors and interceptors are going to have to be extended to cover our landmass. So that's how much we're going to have to pay to get in on it.
But I wonder when he says it's just a relatively small expansion, he's probably not talking about landmass, but he's probably talking about essentially... because you're doing the perimeter, like it's just you just have to employ it in a different way. So okay, that's and obviously, okay, interesting. But I'm sure they're going to be making some money off of this. It's going to be going to pay for a large portion of what they're doing. Like I'm sure they're not just breaking even. So interesting.
Probably not. Probably
Interesting.
Not after all the talk about Trump saying how upset he is that he keeps subsidizing Canada. I doubt he's going to do us another favor.
Yeah, exactly. But I do kind of think, doesn't this, like, come on, guys, this kind of undermine the whole elbows up? We're a sovereign nation. We're our own people. Get the Americans out of here. And then it's like, oh, but please protect us. I mean, obviously they have been for a long time.
Listen, it's made of gold, guys. It's made of gold. How we say no to gold? I love gold. All of a sudden, we're all gold member. I love gold.
Yeah, it's so obvious that we're speaking out of both sides of our mouth, right? Well, I mean, we aren't. We can be consistent in all of this, but I don't know how the liberals look themselves in the mirror after all this, with the brown nosing of Donald Trump. And then please,
hold on a second,
subsume us under the golden dome.
Vampires don't have a reflection in the mirror, so
they don't have to worry about that. I gotcha.
Yeah, ghouls and ghosts don't see themselves when they look in the mirror. So we're okay.
Yeah. Reflection is not something that they're concerned about. I gotcha.
No. So a couple other topics that were discussed that we want to mention that are important for us as Canadians. So the first one's from the National Post. Quote, the leaders of the world's 7 wealthiest democracies ended their annual summit Tuesday with promises to tackle 6 pressing policy issues, including AI, transnational repression, and migrant smuggling. The 3 that kind of rose to the surface. Among the most comprehensive was a statement on artificial intelligence, in which countries committed to developing an AI adoption roadmap. Member countries agreed to accelerate their AI readiness and competitiveness and lower barriers to adoption in the private and public sector. The statement specifically targets AI adoption in the public service, arguing that it is necessary to drive efficiency and better serve our publics. Transnational repression, TNR, a form of foreign interference and illegal migration, which has become an issue of critical importance for many of the G7 member nations, are major issues in Canada. No doubt see our interview with Samuel Cooper to find out all about it. Transnational repression undermines national security, state sovereignty, and the safety and human rights of victims and principles of international law. It has a chilling effect in our countries, reads the statement from the G7 nations. In the statement, the G7 members promised to develop a framework allowing countries to better share information about foreign TNR in their countries and how to best counter it. They also committed to creating a TNR detection academy, which will help members and their allies with the technical skills and tools for identifying and responding to the latest technology-enabled threats, reads the statement. So in the same statement, in a related statement, the G7 nations agreed to enhance border management and enforcement and dismantle the transnational organized crime groups profiting from both migrant smuggling and human trafficking. The leaders said that it is in the national interest of the respective nations to counter human smuggling and human trafficking. The leaders said that migrant smuggling is often linked to money laundering, trafficking in persons and drugs, and other serious crimes. It can expose vulnerable smuggled persons to grave and life-threatening risks, the leaders said, close quote. So even though a lot of that stuff, who wants illegal migration, who wants foreign interference, who wants sex trafficking.
I thought these guys were the open society guys. I thought they were the open society guys. I thought that, smuggling and immigration.
This is why at the beginning of the show, we started off by saying the atmosphere was very different with this year's G7, right? And I think part of it is because if Canada wants to play nice and be in the United States good books, they have to at least say, oh yeah, we're going to do something about all this stuff. Again, I remember I thought for a second that the United States was overblowing the issue and Canada was saying, well, actually, it's not a problem for us. We're not, it's not really coming from us. But apparently it is a problem, because now we're all committed to fixing the problem that didn't really exist 6 months ago.
Yeah. And the amazing part is that I think all the more left-wing, anyways, leaders of these countries have downplayed these sorts of threats in their countries to a person. Now, this is very
this is the Trump effect.
Well, but you notice this is as far as they can go, right? They're talking about human trafficking and smuggling. Sure, that's fine, but they're not actually going to touch the actual problem with just mass immigration and multiculturalism and what all this means, because that's the stuff that is their sacred cow. But I think it is, it is good to point out that, okay, the Trump effect certainly has changed the state of geopolitics. There's no doubt about it. And I think just the general awareness and the pushback against wokeness in the world is having an effect. And so I think it's good. I'm very skeptical of where these leaders, knowing where the vast majority of them are coming from, actually think on these issues.
Yeah, what's the play here? Yeah,
but it also, well, I think it really highlights what I said kind of in a passing comment earlier in the show. This is another thing that the open society way of thinking, the multiculturalism, the mass immigration that many of these guys are ideologically thumbs up for. They've created these sorts of problems. They've helped facilitate these sorts of problems. They've created a situation where these unscrupulous, world gangs can do these sorts of things. And they've turned a blind eye, right? Because they have other motives and other ambitions in it. So here again, they're talking about another crisis internationally that has been created by their foolish, progressive, secular, multicultural, Marxist, utopian vision for the world. But then they're putting themselves forward as the true solution. And that's the one thing that you'll notice with Mark Carney over and over and over and over again. Everything's a crisis. Everything's a crisis. We need solutions. We need solutions. What are the solutions? More government, more centralized, more central control, right? More collaboration with stakeholders. But really, stakeholders are just the Soviet counselors who sit on top of all the stakeholders, right? Because I think we've talked about this. In stakeholder capitalism, stakeholderism, everybody essentially is a stakeholder. But if everybody's a stakeholder, what does that mean, Andrew?
Nobody's a stakeholder.
Nobody's a stakeholder. So who's a stakeholder? Well, it's those who are a part of the Soviet or the council who make the decisions.
It's the pigs, as Orwell would say. It's the pigs. The pigs are the stakeholders.
I knew you were going to say that, and that is the exact way that things are rolling. So I want to highlight that, because in all this stuff, I've even seen Canadian commentators like conservative commentators surprised that some of the things that Carney's saying is more conservative. Some of the things that he's doing is more conservative. But really, if you look. If you just wipe off the veneer,
maybe more conservative than Satan.
Well, yeah, and maybe more conservative than Trudeau, right? Because Trudeau was, he's terrible. But I think we have to be cautious. We have to keep our finger on the pulse of just what's going on, because I think substantially. Nothing's really changed. And in fact, I think Carney, as we've said, he is more of a snake. He's more of a wolf in sheep's clothing than Trudeau. And it's harder to see his teeth and his claws, but they're still there. And we have to be astute at pointing them out. And I think we just have to keep, what is the play here by Carney? Everything's a crisis. What is the solution? everything needs more centralized control and power.
Mhm.
That's his play. And that's where, well, okay, we can't give up. Like, that's where we have to be limited government people on principle and not pragmatic, because he's going to use pragmatic concerns as a way to undercut the principle and then establish control that is centralized in the federal government to then create a situation that potentially in 10 years down the road, we're going to be like, oh, we gave away the farm and we didn't even know it.
And then by way of kind of worldview analysis, the G7 summit highlights the fact that our world leaders and elites don't actually care for us, are not going to save us, are not going to actually help us, and they're not going to come to our rescue. As things continue to trend in a certain direction, culturally, economically, they're actually not going to help us. And so it's incumbent upon you to be responsible for yourselves and help yourself. And so this is why you need to really think seriously. So the school year is about to come to an end. Okay, depending on the school year is about to come to an end. And if you love the Lord and you love your kids, and this last year they were in public school, smarten up and get them out of public school. Like, the systems that exist are not there to actually educate and train your children. And the amount of deconstructive deprogramming you need to do when they come home will not be sufficient to deal with the 8 hours of indoctrination. So the education systems do not exist to actually educate your children. You need to take responsibility for that, whether it's homeschool, private school, Christian school, classical Christian school. That's on you, right? The state cannot be relied upon to help you financially. So you need to be responsible with your money, with your work, how you spend, how you save, how you invest, diversifying, buying some Bitcoin, right? Like, we're trying to lay it on you, the reality that our elites don't care about you and are not going to work for your benefit. And the systems and institutions in our country do not actually exist to see you flourish and to see your family thrive. So you need to do whatever you need to do and act responsibly in all of these different areas with your money, your time, your work, your resources, your church, all this stuff, your education. You need to be responsible, and you cannot we rely on one another, right? Like in the context of families and communities, specifically in church communities, we rely on one another. We help one another. We support. If something happens, we share in the carrying of one another's burdens. But you cannot rely on the state and the state structures. In fact, you need to remove yourself from them as much as possible and be free of them. And whatever they offer, whatever neat little treats they offer, come with claws that rip into your flesh. And so be done with that. They don't care about you. And be responsible. Dig deep with the community around you. And as I've said many times, simply do the exact opposite of everything that our elected officials, unelected health bureaucrats, unelected financial bureaucrats, and legacy media tell you, and you'll do just fine. You'll do just fine.
Yeah, because the fact of the matter is, when these countries get together, when these leaders get together, and they plot and they plan and they scheme, generally what they come up with will make everybody's lives worse. They will create problems that they have to then put themselves forward as the only solution for. And that's a
leftist way. Create the problem. And by creating the problem, you create the necessary conditions for the solution.
Yeah.
And then you present the solution as the answer. And lest you think, okay, well, hold on a second here. Can you give us an example of that? Sure can. COVID, that's a great example and I'm not even necessarily talking about the virus and the jab. Okay. But let's just park that for a second. Let's just look at the response from the state. Right. But just for now, because at the end of the day, there's this really great article that came out of the Telegraph that I covered in an article that I wrote for Dispatch, where finally the Telegraph admits that the evidence is overwhelming that this thing came from a lab, and most likely, and this is what I believe, that it wasn't released, but rather leaked because they're playing a dangerous game and the safety protocols were exceedingly low, and the thing got out. Now, I don't think that it was specifically created with the intention of releasing it as the pretext for the jab. I don't think that's the case. So that's why I say, let's park that here. Let's go with what seems to be much more certain, that they created the lockdown policies and the mandates and the measures knowing full well what it would do. They knew exactly what to do. They knew that it would drive people to substances, and they knew that it would drive up domestic abuse and substance abuse. They knew that it would drive up suicidality. They knew that it would affect people detrimentally. They knew that it would destroy businesses. They knew all that when they put this stuff into play because everyone was telling them. They're not stupid. So they create a problem, and then what's their solution? CERB. We'll pay you $2,000 a month. We'll fix the problem. We're your saviors. Or what's the new problem? Well, how can we created a problem of how can we travel safe? Arrive can, right? So they create the leftist ways. You make the problem, and then you create the solution as the answer to the problem, but it's worse, and you posit yourself as the savior.
Yeah, I mean UBI. Socialism does this all the time. Like right UBI, you destroy the country, destroy market systems, destroy the economy. Then you blame it on capitalism, and then therefore you come up with well, the problem is we haven't, and that's always the problem is we haven't done the progressive thing enough. We haven't progressed far enough. So we got to keep
right
going.
Yet. Haven't done the right way just yet.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah. And then, they do that until they fall off a cliff. And that's why, as much as maybe you guys get sick of hearing it, that's why doing the small things like we talk about so often is what's important, because we've seen this throughout history that regimes like this, tends to be what they do until they get so top heavy and bloated that they can't sustain anything anymore, and then they fall apart. And the only things that are left to pick up the revel are those immediate institutions that are the building blocks of society, that our government through, excessive big governments seeking to destroy. Those are the things that save civilization. And I'm not saying a collapse is imminent or whatever. No, we've always got to be building and fighting in this way, regardless.
That's what I'm saying. I'm saying that.
Yes, but
I'm saying it's imminent.
Regardless, these are still things we need to do, right? We still need to build and fight. These are principles that we need to be adopting regardless of what situation we find ourselves in. And I think we have to, this is something I'm thinking about a lot, Andrew, because history is a tutor, right? God's given us biblical history that we would learn from it. And I think, though, it's not like you can take any epic of biblical history and then drop it down into your time and say this is a 1-for-1 comparison. But you can actually bring out principles. You can see yourselves in different stories based on the times that you find yourselves in. And I think it's hard for it sometimes to do that. But I was thinking, it really does seem like we're in the exile and restoration epic of history. And it's a little hard for us to understand because, well, we haven't been exiled in the same way that Israel and Judah were, right? But we have been disinherited from, let's say the heritage of Canadian values built on Christian principles, right? We've been exiled in our own country deliberately by ideological Marxists and globalists and secularists who have undercut and hollowed out basically everything that made Canada great. So in that way, the foundations have been destroyed. The Bible says when the foundations have been destroyed, what will the righteous do? Well, we'll continue to build and fight. But my point is this: if we find ourselves in this epic of exile and restoration, well, the advance of the kingdom of God actually happens mightily in the period of exile and restoration, that God's people working faithfully, not diminishing their witness, right? Being good witnesses, not diminishing their witness, but not compromising their values. These two things need to, Daniel is the perfect example of this. He never diminishes his witness. He's always proclaiming the excellencies of the true and living God, and he doesn't compromise his values. And that is actually the very thing that gets him up the ladder in multiple different empires, right? That is where we are in the story, I think. And those are the things that we have to be doing. We have to be salt and light. We have to be that witness, and we can't compromise. We can't eat of the king's delicacies, right? Because a lot of Christians, they want to be Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, right? When the state comes and throws me into the fiery furnace, I'm going to be steadfast and firm. But you can't get to Daniel 6 without Daniel 1 and Daniel 3, right? Don't eat of the king's delicacies. Don't compromise in little things, because it's working that muscle out. It's not compromising on the little things that actually leads you to stand firm even to the point of death. And that's why these small things that we're talking about, these small habits, these small communities, they might seem insignificant, but these are the things that are going to be lasting. These are the things that we have to be doing to continually push back and fight back. And I would encourage more Christians, get involved. Now's the time. You're seeing the narrative being pushed back. You're seeing the Overton window, however small, starting to move a little bit. So keep pushing, get active, get involved in your communities, right? In your municipality. If you're in a church, does your pastor, is he on a first name basis with his mayor? With, there's every political official in all of our ridings. Do we know them? Are we praying for them? Have we reached out to them? Are we a part of our community events? All these things we can do. We can really do them. And they're so important. And that's why we always make sure to talk about them and try and encourage you to make those little steps. They might seem small, but they are the things that are really going to change the trajectory of Canada. So don't compromise. Remain a good witness. Don't diminish your witness, and don't compromise. Those are two things that I've been thinking about a lot, Andrew. Awesome, brother. Well,
Sounds
do you
good
have
to me.
anything else to say? Yes. I mean, it's nothing new that we haven't said before, but I just felt I had to go on a little sermonette there because I've just been thinking about it a lot. But anyways, G7, will it change anything? Probably not. It was, I want to encourage Donald Trump and other conservative leaders. Don't do stuff like this. Like you don't need any more parties. You don't need to sit around talking about more empty-headed plans. Get to the doing. Stop this stuff. You don't have to meet every quarter with every globalist under the sun. Stop it. Just say, no, you know what? I'm not going to go. I would encourage everybody. But anyways, that's beside the point. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. We appreciate it. Let us know of what you think of the G7. Is it good? Is it bad? Your thoughts on anything we said today, your thoughts on the job Mark Carney's doing, leave it in the comments below. We do appreciate you checking out our show and interacting with us. If you haven't yet, ldcanada.substack.com. Get over there, get all our stuff. If you become a paid subscriber, full access to all content over there, including
And also,
extras.
if you want to reach out to us, just before I forget, libertydispatch@pm.me. That's how you email us directly. libertydispatch@pm.me.
And the link is in the description below, so it makes it really easy. You can just go in the show descriptions, hit that. It'll come up as an email. You can send us an email directly. We would love to hear from you. We appreciate any spicy takes, whatever you got. Please stay tuned and please share it with other people in your life. Until next time, everybody, Galatians 5:1. God bless y'all.
Liberty Dispatch has been brought to you by SDG Media. If you want to stay in touch with us on all things Liberty Dispatch, join our email list, or support the show, head over to ldcanada.substack.com.